Thank you. Sure. Okay, how about those Eagles? We're going to call to order the Health and Safety Committee meeting for January 30th, 2023. And present tonight, we have our Township Manager, Matt Cannon. We have the Assistant Township Manager, Randy Sabo. We have our Solicitor, Sean Kilkenny. I know this Sean Kilkenny. We have our Solicitor, Sean Kilkenny. We also have joining us our two Commissioners, Nick Skoll and Kip McPatrick. I'll call the meeting to order, and first thing we do is we discuss the minutes of November 23rd.
I have no corrections.
Any corrections?
I have no corrections.
Okay, then we have the approval of the minutes then, please.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, we also want to start with something different tonight. If anyone has any public comments to make before this committee, please do so now. Any public comments?
Would this be the appropriate time for me to talk about the feral cat issue we're having in Ward 2?
This is public comments, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So we have several members of Ward 2 here in the Fair Oaks neighborhood. And as you know, and I've been talking about the feral cat issue for years, and also our lack of having an animal control officer that might be assigned to this. We have had feral cat issues at the Walmart, at the Legion, and the apartment complex on the other side of the water tank on Maryland Avenue. We've had issues at the apartment complex off of Sycamore, and now we have this, and I really didn't understand the impact of it, but there's several neighbors here. I'm going to invite them up to tell their stories about the cats and the fact that we don't have anything to do with to anything that we're able to do about this situation from a municipal standpoint, and some of the hardships we're going through, and the fact that there's no control over this. We do have a feral cat ordinance that permits people to feed wild cats, but you have to register as a colony keeper, and I don't know how many registered colonies we have to date, but it does go through the police department. We had some effort made to get some resources from the police department a few years ago, and we've just been really, really busy and haven't been able to expand on those resources. So I'm going to invite the neighbors to come up and speak first, and then I've asked Aaron, what's your last name? Greer from Forgotten Cats, and I've worked with them before. Several of the neighbors here, I've worked with them before, and after they're done telling their story, hopefully you'll be listening to what they can offer as a fix.
Mr. Spearing, Commissioner Spearing, I thought we were going to hear from the organization at a different date. Was that not discussed?
I thought it was new business.
Yeah, they're new business.
Okay, fine.
Why don't we move to that part of the agenda?
When we come up and talk about cats, please. Please identify.
My name is Jerry Carlson, live on Dorothy Street. These cats have been with us for several years. I've had 3 litters delivered underneath my shed in the back. I've tried everything to try to control them, get rid of them. I've used all kinds of things commercially that I could think. I've talked to my exterminator. To no avail. They're on my deck. They're destroying my furniture on my deck, scratching it up, leaving hair all over the place, defecating on my bushes. It's becoming a health hazard, and I have a dog. Unfortunately, it hasn't attacked them yet, but it's coming. They seem to be very, very docile. You can't scare them. They don't run, they just run underneath the shed and hide. They're all over the neighborhood. We even had a fox come in the neighborhood, it wouldn't take care of them, so I know, that bothered me even more. But we need something done. It's getting to the point where, I don't want to do anything. I love animals, but we need to control these things. It's becoming a health hazard for our area. We have kids running around, we have other dogs and other stuff, and it's nothing but, problems. I hope you can help us.
I just ask you, about how many cats do you think are staying under your shed?
Well, I have constantly 6 to 7 cats around my house.
Okay.
I have a security system I put up. I had to disable it because it went off so many times because the cats, I've done everything. I've adjusted the lights, I've adjusted the security. It goes off constantly. Fortunately, I don't have a monitor or else I'd be charged thousands of dollars for the police coming out on false calls. But I had to disable it. So now I'm disabling my security system in order to compensate for the cats. I wake up in the morning, look out back, I got my deck stuff all covered up and everything, and here's 3 cats laying on top of it, they're sleeping. And they're just that bad. It's just not, and like I said, nothing commercially that I've found has done anything to scare them or get rid of them.
Thank
The other
you.
neighbors have the same problem.
Thank you.
Hello, Shirley. I live on Krugel Street. Specifically, I have an issue not only with the feral cats, but people that own cats and leave them out to roam the neighborhood. 205 Costello, they have many cats at their house. They leave their garage door open. The cats come in and out of the house. 2001, I reached out to the police department and spoke to a Sergeant Rodell, who was helping me for a short time. At that time, there was COVID and there was a lot of other things going on. But then I sort of got dropped like a hot potato. I was told to put out mothballs. I don't understand how people can own a cat and let it roam the neighborhood to defecate people's properties and destroy property, and there's no recourse. It's just, it is what it is, and it's not right. They're on my property constantly. I see them walk past my front window. They're in the back stalking birds. They defecate in my garden constantly. And the people down the street, they're allowed to just let their cats come in and out of their house like you can't let a dog do that. You couldn't let your dog go to the bathroom on other people's property. You'd be fined. The dog would be taken away, but nothing happens to these people. This is on top of the feral cats. And I'd like something to be done about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Linda Humphreys. I live on Dorothy. So last night, for example, we opened up our front door at the end of the game, and I had 6 feral cats on my front yard running around. If you walk up to my front door where we have our landscaping, if you walk up to my front door, you'll smell cat urine. That's all you smell. They come along my bushes, they defecate in my flower beds. I have a dog, so, I have to be mindful out back with her because she has a high prey drive. So, it's her thing to roll in it. So we're constantly out there looking because they're in our backyard all the time. I think 6 cats running around like on my front property is kind of out of the norm. I've lived in Upper Moreland my whole life. I've lived on Dorothy Street my whole life. I know that the cats are an issue. I know we have a neighbor on the next street behind me. She has a enclosed front porch. She has a sliding piece of wood. She puts out food, she puts out dishes. If you walk past her house, you can smell cat urine. She feeds them. She doesn't take care of them. I know they're not licensed like dogs, but they're overrunning the neighborhood. Jerry and Stella, when I walk out back, I can see clear down, our neighborhood through our yards. And come springtime, they have 5, 6 cats, like all running. It's like wild America back there. They're just have completely taken over. It's really escalated more than I've ever seen the whole time I've lived in Upper Moreland. We don't know what to do. I mean, you know, I just think that at this point, what bothers me is that I was raised here, and I feel like we always had a good community, and I think it makes it look cheap, and it feels cheap where we live, and it kind of looks shoddy when you're coming down our street, and you have cats laying in the middle of the street, people's driveways, they don't belong to them, and it's given me more of a city feel, and I think that that's sad.
Excuse, gives you more of a what?
A city feel.
I don't understand that.
Like, I just feel that, you know, we always had a really kept neighborhood. You know, like, if I had my dog and I'm walking my dog and it would defecate, I would pick it up. Or I wouldn't have an abundance of animals or trash. Now I have, you know, there's cat poop, it's on the sidewalk, you know, because they just go wherever. And it's just feeling, I would say it's feeling more urban.
So you're saying urban cities have cats? Okay, go ahead.
I feel like there's more cats.
Go
I
ahead.
mean, I feel that, you know, that there are more strays, and I feel it's out of hand. I know that we don't have animal control. Like, I know Abington has animal control. I know we don't have animal control. But like I said, I've lived here all this time without animal control, but I've never seen this abundance of cats. And I just feel come springtime, it's gonna be worse. We have the park up the street. I mean, there's cats everywhere. I mean, you're a commissioner? I don't know what ward you're in, but anybody that wants to come to our ward, come on over in the springtime and see if you think it's normal to have this amount of cats running around. It's just, I don't think it's clean. And, you know, I would just like it to be handled, whether it's through another agency, if the township can't provide it. But, you know, a good amount of us on Dorothy Street, I'm kind of done with it. I don't want to invite people over and you walk up to my front door and you smell urine from cats and I don't own a cat. So that's all.
Thank you.
Eric, could you tell us how we can deal with this problem? Or what you do in other communities?
Before he does that, can I ask one question? Has anyone spoken to your neighbors about feeding the cats?
Yes. I'm Chuck Harding. I live at 2600 Dorothy Street. And yes, the woman who lives on, I think it's 2519 Eberly, that was spoken about, that feeds the cat. I've lived there 18 years. For 15 years, it's been a problem. And I'll say the same thing. We got cat urine, cat feces in our garden, cats laying in the driveway. I have 2 domesticated cats that I have an enclosed porch. If they're out on the porch, the ferals come and torment my cat. So yes, the woman has been spoken to repeatedly. The police have been involved, and same thing, no avail. She continually puts food out. If you go to her house right now, it's food, there's shelter, there's water, and it's constant. The neighbor across the street from her has repeatedly trapped cats, released them, and it's the same thing. You know, until they make her stop feeding the cats, there's not a lot. We're just going to keep on.
Thank you.
Thank
That
you.
is a problem.
Okay,
So ours works with the Forgotten Cats on Wyandotte Road. It's a Uppermore Township business. It's a 501c. They take contributions. They always need volunteers, and they've done some great work. I've done several cat trappings with them, and some of these neighbors have already done that too.
Yeah, so the problem, first of all, I want to say I'm not just here necessarily advocating for cats. I do understand the problem that a lot of people are facing, but it wouldn't be a meeting about feral cats if somebody wasn't talking about like not feeding feral cats. Unfortunately, in our experience, that doesn't really work to stop feeding them because cats are very intelligent, so they'll start killing wildlife, they start digging through people's trash and things like that. So what our organization does is called Trap, Neuter, Vaccinate, and Return. So with feral cats, we go into whatever community is, for example, Dorothy Street, working with either partners or, you know, animal control officers, the local community people, and get all of the traps, cats in the area trapped. We bring them into our facility, sterilize them, vaccinate them, and then the feral cats get returned to the area that they came from. So understand that that is a long-term, thought-out solution. It's not something that's immediate. But as the gentleman was describing, you know, he's tried a lot of different things underneath his shed to get rid of these cats. The easiest way to take care of it is to sterilize them, because cats are 47 times more prolific than people. So two cats outside, whether they're someone's pet, two pets that people let out, whether it's a couple of feral cats, whatever it is, the important thing is actually to stabilize the population by getting all the cats sterilized first. After that, it's important that, as Kevin mentioned, the colonies are registered so that whoever's taking care of those cats is responsible if any new cats show up, if they're kittens, anything like that. They need to say something so that those cats and kittens can be trapped and sterilized. The other important thing is just not feeding cats doesn't really help from the standpoint of vaccination, because we do also vaccinate all the cats against rabies. And cats in general have a lot of interaction with wild animals like skunks, raccoons, that kind of thing. So Pennsylvania has the third largest number of rabies cases in the entire United States, after only Texas and Virginia. All those, for the most, well, a large majority of those come from interactions with raccoons. So again, just not feeding, the cats will find something to eat somewhere, whether it's your trash, whether it's, again, animals. And I would just stress again the vaccination piece of that. That's really important for helping to eliminate rabies generally in the wild animal population. So anyway, our organization spays and neuters roughly 16,000 cats a year between our two clinic locations. One down in Trainer, which is close to the Wilmington, Pennsylvania, Delaware border, and the other one's actually right here on Wyandotte Road. So we do clinic a few days a week, and again, for us long-term, this is a correct, humane situation. It does actually quickly reduce the number of cats that you see in any given area, because instead of having 3 litters of kittens a year, which one female can have, you know, you immediately eliminate that problem.
So it's been my experience that if you get kittens, a lot of times you try to get them adopted.
Right, that's another part of it, is if we do have friendly cats or kittens, you know, we will try to keep them if we've got space. And that prevents them from being part of that outdoor cat population that's laying around in the neighborhood. And again, it's only friendly cats though, because obviously, you know, feral cats, we can't really do much with. Feral cats bond to their territory, and if you move them or try to eliminate them, yeah.
So I understand that, and I've been down this road before, and people get discouraged with the fact that you're going to release the same cats to the area. This is something we have nothing of right now, and I'm asking that the township resources be employed to help forgotten cats, help the neighborhood conquer this problem. If, like Aaron said, you know, if we get to the cats right now and we stop the process and we get to the person that's feeding them, and make sure that that person is at least cooperating with the ordinance, where they are required to register, and they're not permitted to feed cats unless they do. So, you know, we have those things in place, and those can be employed immediately, in my opinion. So I know everybody wants to say something else about what they heard from Aaron about having the cats spayed and vaccinated and released back to the neighborhood. So come on up and say that real quick, please.
Let's get a question. Once you're spayed and return them back, how long before they go? I mean, I've got cats that I know, in fact, have been left go. People who left the area, turn their cats loose, they were already spayed. Yeah. And now we have a bunch of spayed cats running around. What's our process?
Well, so, I mean, you know, to be completely transparent, yeah, to be completely transparent, I mean, the cats die of old age through attrition, you know, all the reasons you wouldn't want to let your pet cat outside, because there are wild animals, there's cars, again, they can die of old age. there's lots of things that can happen to them. They may just end up running off too.
I'd be
You know.
dead before that.
This is
I mean, I'm concerned about the things running around. I'm concerned about what's happening in our community. We talked about the number of cats we got. People are, short of doing something to the cats that's not healthy or good. I don't want to do that. I want to get rid of them. I want them out of my neighborhood and give them to somebody else. If they want to keep them, I don't care, adopt them or whatever, but I need them out of there. I think we need them out of the township because it's getting to the point where it's not going to just hit there, it's going to get worse. I mean, we got, people see poop on the yards and stuff, guess what? Their dog's going to start pooping, they aren't going to pick it up. Then it's going to get worse, and then we're going to have more things happen. A solution is we need to trap them, get rid of them, move them somewhere else. If they want to spade them during that period of time, I'm grateful for it. But right now, I have some that are running around that are spayed already. Well, they aren't dead yet. And I got, having, like I said, 3 litters under my shed. I can't continue with that.
So that's the important part of when you do a job of trapping cats. That's the important part about getting all of them. Usually when people tell us there's 10 cats in my backyard, there's actually typically twice that number because there's a lot that people don't see, or it's the same kind of color of cat. So usually the populations are bigger than what people think. And that's another reason why it can be, difficult to actually reduce the number the way that you're describing. I'm not aware of anywhere that's like, we'll take all the feral cats you got, send them on over. So short of what you're saying, you don't want to do anything harmful to the cats. The best that we can do from our standpoint is sterilize them so they don't continue reproducing.
Okay, and who pays for my furniture that they tear up and destroy and everything else? How does that go? But, I put a lot of hard-earned money into what I got there. My deck is all set up, and I come up to have people over, and I have to spend 2 days taking cat hair off my deck. I'm not happy with that. I need a solution a little bit better than what you're saying.
So what happens when we catch, spay, and release, and now you have the bottom of your shed all boarded up so they can't get under there? What do the cats do then?
I mean, they'll find somewhere else in the immediate area. They're not going anywhere.
We're gonna keep doing it. My shed and my neighbor's shed, we've had so many cats down there, we could make our own herd of them if we wanted to. And we've been fighting it, trying to not kill the cats, kittens when they come out, we let them grow or whatever they need. I mean, can we go to this lady's house and do something to stop her?
I mean,
Get some action taken care
right.
of.
The limitation that we have obviously is that we're a volunteer-driven organization, and we don't have the capability to tell people what they can and can't do. And
Couldn't afford help us. We got an ordinance that says if they're feeding them, it's their cats. So they need to do what they need to do. I mean, we need some action of some kind. Somebody with some horsepower to come up and tell this lady, she's 93 years old, 94 years old. We need somebody to come up and say to her point blank, this has to cease and desist. And so we can work on getting them out of there. If she stops feeding them, they're gonna go somewhere else, right?
no, they'll start tearing into trash and killing animals.
Well, then we have another situation.
The solution I think that you guys have with having the colonies registered is a good one, because then the person who is registered with the colony is responsible. The other half of that is keeping people's pets inside, because if their cats aren't spayed and neutered, they contribute to the outdoor cat
I
population.
follow all the rules and regulations for my dog. I do my licensing and my shots and everything.
And unfortunately, they don't have, in most places, they don't have that for cats.
Well, that's a problem.
Licensing and that kind of thing, they don't have that for cats in a lot of places, the way that you would with a dog.
I mean, nothing wrong with what you're saying. I just don't want to have a fix and then come back and say, okay, they're still back out here. Just like we said, you got 6 of them underneath your car when you come out. People walking down the street, all they see is cats, and there must be a ton of dogs walk that street every day. People around the neighborhood. And, it's bad enough we got 13 deer running around, but having cats and everything else attacking, it gets worse. We're becoming a zoo.
Well, so just to just to play the opposite side of that, you're not advocating for getting rid of the deer, right? They live there.
They're gone, they vacated, once they were there for a
But
week.
other wild animals, they live there, right? You're not
Foxes.
advocating for coming in and trapping them.
No, but the foxes are coming up on my deck.
That's all. It's not here.
Okay, we thank you for your contributions,
So
thank you.
thank you for your time. This is the problem, and then I hope we can revisit a solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, thank you for coming out.
And just so you know, this wasn't scheduled on here. We will be finding certain things out, and you should hear back from Kevin, is where you would get your answers. We do not answer anything tonight. We didn't even know it was on here. So don't think we're just saying, get out. Yeah, we'll look into it. So, and this is not the only place we do have problems. So, but it's nice to hear where a whole bunch of them are, because that way it might help us look into it in a different fashion. So.
Thank you very much for coming
Yeah.
out.
One more
Yeah.
thing, sorry. Hi, Caroline Young. I live on Gilpin. I wanted to discuss the stop sign at Broughton Park, which is at the corner of Barrett and Sheldon. A bunch of the neighbors have expressed concern that most drivers just seem to roll through that stop sign right there. So my own children enjoy that park, so I've seen it firsthand. I was thinking that maybe we could add a stop bar or some stop stenciling or chevron arrows, or maybe add some reflectors to the stop sign, or all of the above, but something to deter or slow down drivers and actually have them view the stop sign and stop. I'll leave it to your expertise, but wanted to put it on your radar.
Thank you very much.
We'll look into that. I'll have our traffic officers do a survey of the intersection and come back with the recommendations. You're welcome.
Which leads us into Chief Block and your report, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good evening. Before I deliver my report this evening, I do want to make a statement, and it's in relation to Memphis, Tennessee, and the behavior that we observed over the last week down there. We do not condone this type of behavior at all in law enforcement nor in this police department. It's abhorrent and reprehensive behavior that was exhibited by those police officers. That standard is not here, not only here in Upper Moreland, but also throughout Montgomery County, where my colleagues, my fellow chiefs, we issued a letter today through the Police Chiefs Association of Montgomery County condemning this type of behavior. So I just wanted to make that statement for our residents and our visitors in Upper Moreland Township. I'd like to deliver the December 2022 report. We responded to 1,262 calls for service for the month of December 2022. This rounds out the end of the year at 15,656 calls total for 2022, and it's one of the busiest years on record for the Upper Moreland Police Department. The calls for service between November and December of 2022 increased by 81 incidents. The monthly police department call volume continues to realize an uptick with a 5% increase in the call volume of comparing a year ago in December of 2021. Our outlying call volumes in December of 2021, the year ended at 14,285. In December of 2020, it ended at 13,741 calls, and in December of 19, pre-COVID, was at 14,834 calls. The following Part 1 crimes were reported and investigated by the police department in December of 2022. There was 1 aggravated assault, 1 auto theft, 2 burglaries, which were cleared by an arrest, and 46 other theft offenses, with 14 of those being cleared by an arrest. The following Part 2 crimes were reported and investigated by the police department: 2 public intoxication offenses that were cleared by an arrest, 3 disorderly conduct offenses, also cleared by an arrest, 7 narcotics investigations, all cleared by an arrest, and 28 other crimes that were committed. The Patrol Division conducted the following proactive measures. There was 174 vehicle investigations, 21 hazardous traffic violations, 74 non-traffic or non-hazardous traffic violations, 1 parking citation was issued, 3 homeless contacts, 7 DUI investigations. 3 of them were between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., and 4 of them were between 7 at night and 7 in the morning. We have a reason to believe that was just because of the holidays and the different parties that were in the area. The Traffic and Highway Safety Unit was busy as well. 15 calls for service, 2 traffic investigations, 30 traffic stops and motor vehicle investigations, 12 warnings were issued, 10 hazardous moving citations, 16 non-hazardous moving citations, and 210 bus patrol citations were issued in December of 2022. And that brings us year-to-date for 526 violations that have been processed. There's two things that we observed over the last month and a half dealing with an uptick in crime that we've seen in the area. One is the theft from vehicles and the motor vehicle thefts. One of the things we've been doing is we've been deploying additional patrols in those areas of the township where it's being affected. We were on the phone today with representatives from Kia, and they are going to donate to the township 80 of the club bars that can go across a person's steering wheel as an anti-theft device. So they're coming free of charge. They'll be available to any township resident that would like to come in and provide their information, and we'll give that to you as a preventative measure. The other thing is we've seen a significant uptick in the theft of catalytic converters. It continues to rise each year. Statistically, back in 2019, so the board has the right numbers here. I'm sorry, in 2021, we experienced 50 converter thefts. In 2020, we only had 7 of them. In 2022, we had an all-time high of 87 converter thefts, and so far this year, and we're just ending out the month, we're at 43 converter thefts. So one of the things we've been doing again is we've been providing directed patrols for these thefts. I've also transmitted a letter to our state senator Maria Collette, as well as our state representative Nancy Genst, requesting additional legislation being acted to assist the police department with these investigations. Right now, it's illegal for you to obviously steal the catalytic converters under the vehicle code. However, you have to catch the person in the act when they're committing these thefts. They're committed during the overnight hours when most people are sleeping. It still poses a threat to our neighborhood. What I propose to them is to change the law and amend the law to the point where when these catalytic converters are taken by the thieves, wherever they're being turned into, there has to be a reporting process. The individuals have to show the appropriate ID, and either the salver or the scrapyard has to record all that information and then turn that over to law enforcement. So these are one of the proactive measures that we're trying to work through with this, because it's not just here, it's throughout the state and the country that we're experiencing these because of the precious metals in there. So that concludes my report for the month of December 2022. I open it to questions.
Thank you. Any commissioner comments? Chief?
I guess the only one I have is the comment on this. I just watched the whole right side of the room, just like that there's this much activity going on. There is. And they even with that, we've had extra patrols out. And it has still happened between here, Horsham, and Hatboro quite a bit. The biggest thing is lock your cars. We've said it for years. A lot of these are unlocked cars that they just, as they run down the street, both sides of the street, they might have one person on each side, and if the car is unlocked, they're going through it. Or if they see something you left in it, and you did lock it, if they see it and they want it, they're gonna break the window, because they're gonna be gone in about less than a couple minutes. They'll be out of there. So it's a problem that has increased dramatically during COVID or after COVID now. And we're trying to fight it. There are extra patrols. And thanks for the officers that are really combating this. But it is happening at every township around. So, yeah, lock your cars.
Can you repeat that part that you said that you reached out to somebody to get something passed, but it's not being passed, or I?
No, we just, no, that's fine. So I sent a letter to our state representative, Nancy Genst, just recently, and our state senator, Marie Collette, requesting them to look into this, to sponsor legislation. So I will keep everybody advised of that. But this is one of the ways that we can combat it. That when they bring them into the yards, this would probably shut the operation down. You know, we'd see a reduction in over 80% of these offenses if it was reported.
So a few years ago, we did something similar to this with the pawn shops. And we've had some, I know investigators are able to get into those records, and it was helpful with a few recoveries that I remember in the township. Now, I know that if we have, you go to a scrapyard, and there's a couple scrap yards in our region, and they do record who made the transaction, but not what they brought in. And what happens is they'll just go to another municipality that doesn't have it. So that's why we need it at the state level, so that everybody's got it.
And our state representative, Nancy Genston, our state senator, Maria Clutt, very supportive of law enforcement in our local community, so they work with us hand in hand.
Chief, I think the young lady was asking about the bars, the steering wheel bars.
No, that was,
No.
about that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You spoke, to
So-
us, so I didn't know if they were supporting it or not, so you answered my question, that was good. Thank you.
Any other public comments concerning the chief's report? If not, Fire Chief Glassman, please.
Thank you, Commissioner. It's my pleasure to submit the December 2022 report. For the month of December, we had 77 fire calls, 22 EMS runs for a total of 99 calls. Fire permit inspections were 37. Fees collected 1,365. The yearly fees collected is 20,435. There were 5 fire marshal investigations and 1 firefighter injury. Significant incidents, on November 22nd, we actually had a Narcan administration from a victim that was barely breathing pretty close to the firehouse. And it worked well because our members were there quickly, and it was a mutual aid ambulance that was coming, so they maintained the airway of the victim until the ambulance arrived. On 12/29, we had a significant fire at 423 Bensel. I attached a couple pictures of fire coming through the roof and subsequent pictures of the inside. 12/29 again, we had a shed fire on 411 Willard. There's a picture as well. Also on Christmas Eve, you might have heard there was a water problem in the gym at the high school. That's one of our members at 1:30 in the morning on Christmas Eve, trying to mitigate the water problem on a high lift that they found inside the high school. I attached a picture with us and the police department doing Santa Claus runs. We covered the whole community. I listed 6 events at 100 people, but there was plenty more than that going on because we covered basically every corner of the township. Fire service training hours was 17 personnel for 54 hours. Also on the emergency management side, all the township managers completed tabletop exercise with the simulated tornado come through the township. Last week, we spent about 3 hours in the Emergency Operations Center, just refining and going over our operational plans. One other thing I'd like to report, on October 11th, the United States Fire Administration and Administrator Dr. Lori Morrell hosted a fire prevention summit with some big city fire leaders, Commissioner Teal from Philadelphia, Chief Lee from FDNY. During the course of the summit, there are several facts that were released. And what they said basically is, despite our vast technologies and advancements that we've made through the years, these following truths remain. During a fire today, you have the least amount of time to safely exit your burning home than in any time in history. Your chance of dying in a fire today is 40 times today is higher than 40 years ago. Fire deaths, injuries, and displacement disproportionately affect lower income communities and people of color. Safe and affordable housing should be mutually exclusive. A compounding problem in cities around America is that those who survive are displaced long-term or become homeless due to lack of personal or local resources. 99 million people, or a third of the United States population, now live in wild urban interface environments, which means heavily wooded areas, and it poses a great fire danger. Fire departments across the United States, both career, volunteer, are experiencing dramatic personnel shortages. The situation is a national problem, and without intervention will continue to worsen, affecting the ability to meet emergency calls, call volume, and demand in many areas. Technology, including micro-mobility products or powered lithium-ion batteries that I talk about just about every month, are providing a new wave of fire causes. And last but not least, automatic fire suppression systems like sprinklers save lives, yet several of the building manufacturers are resistant to that. And so I always talk about fire spread and the importance of us arriving quickly. I captured, basically, that was a summit. I captured a 3.5-minute video that I'd like to play on the screen of how quickly fire grows and the importance of us arriving as quick as possible. And it just takes about 3.5 minutes of your time. I think it was well served in my time.
Much has changed over the decades. Homes are larger, on average by 1,000 square feet larger than they were since 1980, which means more complex escape plans and harder homes to get out of. We've incorporated more open spaces into our homes, which allows for easier fire and smoke spread. The fuels or furnishings in our homes have evolved to incorporate more synthetics or plastics. These plastics burn faster and release more toxic smoke than the natural fuels they've replaced. The building materials we build our homes out of have changed for several reasons. A lot of those reasons really important, such as reduced cost, material availability, energy efficiency, have all come to play a role. We've also incorporated many new technologies in our homes, which can be looked at as new ignition sources when you're a fire protection engineer. That's how we tend to look at things, such as lithium-ion battery-powered devices. Each of these changes can be significant, and they can come together to lead to significant fire safety challenges. Today, we're seeing faster fire propagation, shorter times to flash over, or the amount of time it takes for a room to completely be involved in fire, rapid changes in fire, shorter escape times for occupants, shorter times to collapse, which is an incredibly important factor for the fire service that's responding to deal with all of these new and unknown hazards. I'd like to show an example of how changes in furnishings can impact our fire safety. Look at this comparison. We ignite a small flaming fire in the sofa of each room. Each room is furnished with identical furnishings in type, but not in composition. On the natural room, we've got a sofa filled with cotton and wood furnishings that are actually made of wood. On the right, on the synthetic, we've got a room that represents predominantly what we have in our homes across the United States. Foam-filled sofas and other furnishings and accessories that are made of plastic. Notice the difference in smoke as the fire grows. The thick black smoke in the synthetic room, a sign of incomplete combustion with serious toxic consequences. Temperatures over 1,000 degrees and a couple breaths of over 10,000 parts per million of carbon monoxide will leave our occupants unconscious. Counter that to our natural room that is burning more completely, yet much more slowly. That room does go to flashover, but ultimately it takes in excess of 30 minutes to get there. So when I talked to my grandfather in the past about response times and what he could do during his fires, what we can do today during fires, it's a very different work environment and a very different environment that the public has to escape.
So I thought that video was a good reflection of why I'm always talking about response times and why it's important that we arrive and, as quickly as possible to keep every situation as small as possible before it extends.
Thank you very much, Chief Glassman.
You're welcome.
Any commissioner comments for the chief? Any? Go ahead.
How long do you think it takes before that room you're in, you can't get out of? 2 minutes?
Not long. So in that same symposium was Commissioner Teal from Philadelphia, and I have a clip for next month and a following clip from Chief Lieb in the FDNY from when they had the significant loss incidents in January. Commissioner Teal said his engine company was on location putting water on the fire in under 2 minutes. And they still had a large loss of life.
Thank you.
So it's not an easy question to answer, but seconds really, really matter because of what materials are made up these days.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? Chief Glassman, thank you. Next, we have our report from Assistant Chief Ken Davison. Ken, please.
Thank you, Commissioner. You have statistics from October and November in your reports. Both months are relatively similar, both high-volume months, 335 calls in October, 303 in November, with 190 being transported in October and 190 being transported in November. We continue to see the same trends that we've seen over the past year with higher volume of calls and higher acuity of calls. Naloxone administration in December by second alarmers was 1, which is pretty much staying on par with where it's been. It's been 1 or none for the past several months. Our staffing report for December, full staffing of ALS ambulances would be 3,348 hours. Our actual ALS staffing was 3,044 hours. We had to downgrade units to BLS for 174 hours, and we had 130 hours of no coverage, so staffing remains our primary concern. Notable information, we currently have 2 full-time paramedic positions that remain vacant and 4 full-time EMT positions that remain vacant. We had started to catch up on the EMT positions and had 2 people leave to go to school, so we're back up to 4 full-time positions there. In November, we did take delivery of a Ford F-150 supervisor vehicle. It's finally scheduled to be outfitted in the next couple of months, and I actually believe they started the work on it last week. I've reported previously that we had ordered 2 new ambulances from a vendor in New Jersey that we've used for many years. The orders for those were placed in 2020. We're now being told maybe we'll see them in April. Again, the same supply chain issues that I think everybody's seeing with fleets. We did have an opportunity come up. Another vendor in Western Pennsylvania had a truck that was what they call a demo. Actually, these vendors are buying trucks for demos and then selling them without ever demoing them, and they're coming in and going out as quickly as possible. So we were able to work with the bank that had provided the package for the 2 ambulances and sort of convert one of those to an option. And we did enter into a contract to purchase an ambulance from Phase 2 emergency vehicles that we're hoping will be delivered to us within the next couple of weeks. The cost of that vehicle was $275,000, which is a little bit more than the 2 we had on order. But as they say, you know, what we can get is what we can get. A couple other things I wanted to briefly touch on and some statistics to kind of follow up on a little bit. We've talked in previous months about increased calls for behavioral psychiatric emergencies and mental health calls. We ran some numbers with the county, and just to give some perspective, in 2020, department-wide, we responded to 433 calls for behavioral psych emergency, or that were coded that way. In 2021, we had an additional 45 calls for a total of 478. In 2022, we were up 65 for a total of 543. And right now, the way we're tracking for 2023, if we stay on trend, we'd be at 730 calls, which is up 187 calls from the previous year. So we're definitely seeing a high surge of these mental health calls. That's the one specific nature code. If we go back to 2022, there were 111 additional calls that were actually entered in the computer specifically as a suicide attempt. So if you add that number on, obviously, those are also mental health calls. So we continue to work with our partners at the county, at Mobile Crisis, with the police departments, but we definitely need to start adding additional resources to handle these calls because they are growing in volume. We've also talked a fair amount about call volume and mutual aid calls and cover calls. 2022 is on par to be our busiest year ever, with our department being dispatched 17,368 times amongst all the municipalities we serve. 11,984 of those calls were in the 7 municipalities that we specifically serve. That leaves 5,384 calls that were mutual aid, or about 30%. So about 30% of the calls we go on are mutual aid to other municipalities, and it is likewise returned to us in kind by those other municipalities that they're coming and covering us a fair amount as well. So call volume is up, and that mixed with reduced staffing is certainly something that we need to get under control as quickly as possible. The last update, and Commissioner Spearing's back good because this will interest you. 2 things from the county. We still haven't been able to get an answer as to what they plan to do with the ARPA funding that they allocated for the system study. But on a positive note, the Department of Public Safety did put out an RFP seeking vendors to do sort of a 4-phase study of the emergency medical services system in Montgomery County. In my role from the Ambulance Association, I was fortunately put on the selection committee for that. So I can tell you with firsthand knowledge, it is moving forward. We're in the vendor selection process, and at least there's some hope that we'll see some kind of a product come from that in the near future. That's my report. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any commissioner comments for Ken Davison? Any public comments for Ken Davison? Ken, thank you very much for your report.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Okay, we have no old business to discuss tonight, nor do we have any new business to discuss tonight. Do we have any commissioner comments left? Okay, we stand adjourned. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you, Kip.